Bienvenidos a Manos y Oficios.
Welcome to Manos y Oficios. Today we meet from the planetarium of the city of Medellín, and we are going to read some mythological stories told by the constellations.
Johan, bienvenido a Manos y Oficios. Gracias por...
Johan, welcome to Manos y Oficios. Thank you for receiving us today at the planetarium, and we are going to talk about all those stories that the constellations tell us. Hello Sarah, thank you for inviting us to this very cool space to share some of those stories that the stars tell us. In the firmament in the celestial wedding, there are a lot of points of light that twinkle at night and tell us many stories. Many years ago the Greeks and the Mesopotamians,
los mesopotámicos, todos ellos hicieron una...
all of them made a conversation with that sky, with that firmament, and they began to reflect a little bit those stories that they lived day by day.
En el cielo. Pero ellos...
They're in the sky, but they had a different vision of astronomy than the one we have today,
Porque no tenían los instrumentos suficientes.
because they did not have enough instruments to understand how the universe worked, how the stars worked. Those stars also determined, let's say, at that time the cultures were guided by the stars to be able to have their crops, the time to sow, not to sow.
Exacto, porque
Exactly, because not all the stars are visible during all the time of the year.
nosotros tenemos unas casas.
We have some constellation houses, which is the place where the sun goes through, that is called the ecliptic.
Aquí tengo una cosa que se llama la esfera armilar.
Here I have something called the armillary sphere. It was the instrument used many years ago by astronomers to measure the position of the stars, in reference to this center, which is the Earth.
Y dentro de esa esfera armilar
Inside this armillary sphere we have our Earth and these lines that we see rotating around this central point, which is the Earth,
son las líneas del tránsito del Sol. Y entonces,
are the lines of the transit of the sun. The sun seemed to rotate around the Earth for them, but it did not always leave the same place. It has 3 points through which it leaves, because the Earth, when moving around the sun, in an orbit that is inclined,
no es así como este plano de acá, ¿cierto?
it is not like this plane here, but the orbit is so inclined. If we had the sun here in the center, then that makes that sometimes we see the sun rise in a part a little bit more to the north and sometimes a little bit more to the south,
Más hacia el sur.
Exacto.
Y a veces
sometimes in the whole center that would be our equator.
eso determina las estaciones.
That determines the seasons, and in that transit of the sun goes through some positions of the stars. To that transit and that position of the stars were determined the first important constellations that are the 12 zodiacal constellations,
Que entonces comienzan con Aries, luego va Tauro.
which begin with Aries, then Taurus, then Virgo. That is where the mythology comes in.
Estas historias son heredadas de Grecia.
It turns out that these stories come from or inherited from Greece, and we take them because we know that later the Roman Empire conquered Greece and took all that culture and took it to the rest of Europe. It came to us, but they were located in a strategic geographical point, which is the Mediterranean. In the Mediterranean, several very important points of the globe that were Asia, Africa, and Europe.
Europa. Y en esa conversación se encontraron con las culturas.
In that conversation they met with the Mesopotamian cultures, with Babylon, with the cultures of Africa, with Egypt, all that influence of them, of what they had done to read the stars, because before there were no stars to read, reading the stars, because before there was no television. When there was no television, what did one do? Try to see stories in another place, and the stars seemed to be that place where divinity resided, where the gods and their stories resided, which were the stories that governed the routine of men. I am going to invite you to see a little of those constellations, those stories, and one will say that how did the Greeks and many years ago people had to wait for the night to see those stars.
Para ver esas estrellas. Nosotros, hoy en la actualidad,
Today we have technology and tools that we do not need night to be able to observe the constellations.
constelaciones y de estrellas.
Excelente.
Entonces te invito.
Súper chévere. Bueno, Johan, ya estamos aquí listos.
Well, Johan, we are here ready to start seeing the constellations, the stars.
Sí, lo que no tuvieron los griegos,
Yes, what the Greeks did not have at that time, or computers, software, in short, we have a very cool software that is free,
libre, es gratuito, que se llama Stellarium, que lo puedes tener en tu computador.
called Stellarium that you can get on your computer. You can also have it on your cell phone. There is a mobile application and it will be super useful to help you in the observation at night if you do not guide you very well. What is this other star? What are the constellations? Because sometimes it can be difficult in that location. And look, it shows us in real time. Right now we'll have sun and in principle we couldn't see the stars even though they're there, but we can't see them, because the sun radiates so much light that it doesn't allow us to see the light coming from the stars.
Día, no.
Pero siempre están.
But they are there. I wouldn't think that because it is daytime, no. But they are always there. Besides, the sun is a star, so we already have a very big star, but all the others are there, they are always there. And this software, look, allows us to clear that sky, remove that light from the sun and see that we have like a horizon and shows us those stars, the reference point. Look, that our sun, I was telling you now that at this moment is in Cancer. This is the constellation of Cancer.
Extendidas, las estrellas más brillantes.
That if you see it here, it is in the extended legs. The brightest stars that you see are like the extended legs of Cancer. Here, here. But you say, as I do not see anything, I see points of light. We can help with the software. I will show you the reference lines. Here are the extended legs of our Cancer, which is the crab crushed by Hercules. I have told you, even this software can help us by showing us the names of our constellations.
Y algo muy bello que es la representación gráfica.
And, something very beautiful is the graphic representation of those constellations, because they would see dots and say this is Cancer. This is the crab, and they would imagine something that is very difficult for us to imagine because of the visual flood, but they did see.
Entonces, para uno dice, bueno, son, primero uno ve
These drawings, first one sees points of light when one manages to connect. This is called an asterism, that connection between the points of light of the constellations of the stars, moreover to imagine the graphic representation.
Tenían demasiada
mucha
imaginación.
imaginación.
They had too much imagination. A lot of imagination. Sometimes it seems that we are lazier for that, for imagining.
Un grupo de constelaciones muy interesante que se va a ver, más o menos.
And I want to talk about a very interesting group of constellations that is going to be seen around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, from 11 o'clock onwards, which is the group of Andromeda. The group of Andromeda has a very interesting story in mythology. It is a story of love battles, of heartbreak, of tragedy.
Es toda una película de héroes.
It is a whole movie of heroes, of our Marvel universe of DC, that Iron Man, they saw them in the sky. I am going to tell you the story of Andromeda. This one here, this pretty skinny one that you see over here is Andromeda.
Es Andrómeda.
Los asterismos, digamos, al formar Andrómeda,
The asterisms, let's say, when forming Andromeda, if not, you put us the drawing really one is in the sky 3 little sticks. That's why I say a beautiful skinny girl, because Andromeda had the virtue of being a very beautiful woman, and that's what made many people get into trouble because of that beauty.
Y entre esos estaba por acá un héroe.
Among them was a hero named Perseus.
En nuestro grupo de Andrómeda con la historia de esta constelación de aquí que es Perseo.
So we are going to start, in our Andromeda group, with the history of this constellation here, which is Perseus. Let's see it without the graphic representation, how it would look like. They have even the head of Medusa, is it? Medusa, but the story of Perseus is very interesting because he was a man who trained, who exercised, but he was a human, and it turns out that his mother was harassed by a king. This king harassed her a lot and pursued her so much, he was so toxic, that Perseus got tired one day and said to her, "No, little brother, I need you to help me. No, little brother, I need you to stop bothering my mom."
puso la tarea más difícil.
And this king said to Perseus, "Ready, let's make a deal, I will stop bothering your mother, if you bring me the head of Medusa." He gave him the most difficult and impossible task, because Medusa was a monster. Before being a monster she was a beautiful priestess of the temple of Athena, who was punished to become a monster, because she had a strange, difficult, toxic love affair with a god, Poseidon, the god of the seas, and because of that love affair, she was punished to become a monster. What is this monster that had snakes in his head and that no one could observe, no human being could observe, no man, because he became a statue, a rock in stone? And then Perseus was given the task of bringing the head of Medusa.
Perseo, si la observaba, cómo le iba a derrotar, cómo le iba a arrancar la cabeza sin mirarla.
How was that going to be Perseus if he watched her? How was he going to defeat her? How was he going to tear her head off without looking at her? Then the goddess Athena gave Perseus a gift. She said, "See, I am going to give him a sickle to cut off Medusa's head, but I am also going to give him a shield," which was not the shield of Captain America. It was a different shield, a very polished shield, very shiny, so shiny that it looked like a mirror. Then Perseus used that mirror to see Medusa's reflection, and from that reflection he began to face Medusa. He was not seeing her directly but through the reflection. He was no longer affected by the fact that she was transformed into a rock and a statue. It was like tapping backwards with the mirror. It is not true that if you reverse right or left, but in the end he managed to remove the head and went and showed it to the king.
Dejar de molestar a su mamá. Pero por otro lado,
And that king said, "Okay, no way, he did it," I said, "and I'm going to stop bothering his mother." But on the other hand, that happened in a part of the Mediterranean which is the island of Perfides.
feo para los babilonios era la representación de un rey poderoso, de un rey serio, digno.
But on the other hand we have Cepheus. Cepheus for the Babylonians was the representation of a powerful king, of a serious, dignified king. But as this story was traveling to the west, to Greece, to the Romans, this king was losing historical force. He was the king of Babylon, for the Mesopotamian cultures. He was their most important king. For the Greeks he was no longer such an important king, because he was the king over there of a distant city, over there on the other side of the Mediterranean. For them he was already a proud king, eager for power, even weak before his wife, who was this lady over here, Cassiopeia, that if we see her without the graphic representation is like a W. It turns out that Cassiopeia was very vain. See that the representation has a mirror and everything. She was a very vain woman. Because of that vanity she sinned.
Porque era tan vanidosa que se nombraba primero ella.
She was so vain that she sinned because of that vanity. She was so valuable, she is named first she. Me and my daughter Andromeda are the most beautiful of the planet Earth, of the whole universe. We are more beautiful than the nymphs of the sea. Was she Andromeda's mother? Both Cepheus and Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia was Cepheus' wife. They were the parents of the little skinny girl, that I showed you now, the beautiful skinny girl, Andromeda, the one of discord that was inherited because of her mother. The mother was very vain. She said, "My daughter and I are so beautiful and so divine that we are prettier than the nymphs of the sea, than the Nereids," and these women, very indignant, because there was someone saying that she was prettier than them, went to cry to the father, pouting, "Daddy, Daddy, there is a lady who is saying that she is prettier than us." Cassiopeia is saying, telling the story that she is prettier than us. The 50 nymphs of the sea, and then Nereo said, "How come there is someone saying that she is prettier than you?" "No, sir, that is not possible," and he went to talk to the god of the sea with Poseidon, and he went to him and complained and also pouted. See that Cassiopeia is saying that she and her daughter Andromeda are prettier than the Nereids, than my 50 daughters, because he did not have a few, he had 50 and all of them were beautiful according to him. And Poseidon said, "No, that cannot be, we are going to punish them for being vain and proud." Then what did he do? In the Middle East he began to throw the sea to flood, and Cepheus said, "I have to save my kingdom, I cannot let my kingdom be flooded, what can I do?" And he went and consulted the oracle, and the oracle told him, "It is very simple, put Andromeda chained to a rock so that the Cetus would come and eat her." And Perseus was passing by, he was passing by on Pegasus, which is near here, you see, they were flying by and he saw her tied there, very pretty, very beautiful, he said, "Oops, what is that beautiful woman doing tied there, why is she tied there? And he talked with Cepheus, with the king, he said, she was tied there, because Cetus is coming to eat her, so that my kingdom is not flooded because of Poseidon, who is angry because of Cassiopeia's vanity. Perseus said, no, I saved Andromeda, I am going to face Cetus, and he faced Cetus, defeated him and married Andromeda, but Cassiopeia, they punished her for her vanity and put her in this position. She was very beautiful, but they put her in a bent position, bent down to diminish and overshadow her beauty. What a lot of interesting stories, so interesting, Johann. How about now we are going to do an activity that you told me you had prepared for us, to be able to do like this manual observation, something more handmade, because as all the constellations do not have the same characteristics as the constellations, we are not going to be able to see the constellations in the sky. Because as all the constellations are not always visible in the firmament, in the sky, but it depends on our movement and our transit, and I want to see the constellation of Hercules in January and I do not see it there, I am going to teach you how to do an activity, a cool craft, so that you always have in your homes the constellation of Hercules or the one you like the most.
Bueno, Johan, ahora sí, manos a la obra. ¿Qué es lo que vamos a hacer?
Well, Johann, now let's get down to work. What are we going to do? Today we are going to make a very simple constellation projector that you can use, with the flashlights of your cell phone, with any flashlight, to see those constellations that are not seen at night. Because I was telling you, there are nights when we see all the constellations, but I like, for example, Orion very much. Not all the year we see Orion, and here I have a projector with the stars of Orion to project them at night in my room, on the ceiling of my house, wherever I want, because it is dark. It is very easy to do.
Una cartulina negra, preferiblemente pueden usar cualquier tipo de cartulina, pero la negra nos
What we will need a black cardboard, preferably you can use any kind of cardboard, but the black one helps us a little to catch the light. We will need scissors to cut, a ruler, a pencil to measure, make the measurements of our projector. You will see that it looks like a prism, like a cylinder, like a cut-out cone, and we will need an awl.
un punzón, pero en mi caso voy a usar mejor una chinche que nos ayude a trabajar.
In my case I will use a thumbtack. We will also need a small sheet of paper to make the outline and the drawing of our constellation.
Para hacer el trazo y el dibujo de nuestra constelación.
Ah, ok.
Y ya, con qué pegar. Pueden usar.
Glue, you can use tape, whatever you have at home.
Son materiales muy sencillos que de todas formas se puede.
They are very simple materials that anyway you can help yourselves with whatever you have. Here we have already made the outline previously, with what measurements?
Son 7 centímetros en la parte superior.
Ready, the measurements we have here are 7 centimeters at the top and 2 centimeters at the bottom, which becomes this line here of the faces. There are 4 faces. You must make this same line 4 times and leave an additional line,
Que va a ser una pestaña que nos va a ayudar a unir las caras.
which will be a tab that will help us to join the faces, and at the top, we have a square of 7 centimeters by 7 centimeters, on all sides, because it will be our cover of that cut cone, where the constellation is drawn. Exactly, where we are going to draw our constellation, but it is important that you are not going to cut it on the line that you draw, but that you also leave a tab, just as we left it here, because it is going to be the one that will help us to join this pyramid that we have here, ready.
Sara, tú me puedes ayudar recortando
Claro que sí.
esas caras de nuestro proyector.
Sarah, you can cut it out for me. Of course I can. Those faces of our projector, and I, on the other hand, what I am going to do is to trace one of the constellations here. Which one are we going to trace? I was telling you about the history of the group of Andromeda, and who in the end started all this dispute and this problem in this mythological history was the Queen Cassiopeia, the vain one. So we are going to trace the constellation of Cassiopeia. What we are going to do, we are going to bend these eyelashes, so that the eyelashes bend better. You can help with the ruler and with the pencil to make a line on the line, strong, to help it to bend.
Acá vamos. Este proyector es muy fácil de hacer y pueden ver la constelación cuando quieran, no solamente limitarse a...
This projector is very easy to make and you can see the constellation whenever you want, not only limited to what the sky can show us. At night, what we are going to do is to join the faces. We can use our glue or we can also use tape to make it faster, easier.
Con el colbón les va a quedar mucho más firme. Este de acá.
Simpler with the glue, it will be much firmer. This one here I made it with glue, but at this moment we can also use tape for agility.
Y vamos uniendo las caras de nuestro proyector.
And we are joining the faces of our projector. See that Hera, the goddess wife of Zeus,
Le tenía tanta envidia y rabiecita de Hércules
was so envious and angry to Hercules,
que mandó varios animales y criaturas.
that she sent several animals and creatures to try to destroy Hercules, but when he was a child Zeus and Hermes were worried that he was mortal, that he was not like the gods, that he had eternal life, that he was immortal, so he tried to make Hera breastfeed him, but when Hera saw that she had that baby that was not hers,
Tenía ese bebé que no era de ella, ahí en su pecho.
there in her breast, she pushed him and the milk of Hera spilled out into space, into the sky.
Esa es el trazo que nosotros vemos de la Vía Láctea.
That is the trace that we see of the Milky Way, and that is why it is called Milky Way, because it is the spilled milk of the most important goddess of the Greek Olympus, which is Hera.
Bueno, acá cómo lo vamos a pegar para que
Bueno, lo podemos pegar por fuera.
Well, here is how we are going to paste it. We can glue it on the outside, but it is also important that when you use the awl,
La atravesada sea
the cross from the inside to the outside, because this relief can then affect the projection of your constellation.
de su constelación. Entonces es mejor que quede por fuera.
tener eso en cuenta.
It is better that it is on the outside, that the relief is on the outside, that highlight, that it is like that, so that when you pass your finger over it, it feels as if it has that relief, that texture. Look at this exercise of the relief in the constellations. It is an exercise that is done very, very, very often with the blind population. To do a little bit of astronomy study with them, we play with the theme of the reliefs, to show them the constellations, the textures of the planets.
Acá en la biblioteca del planetario tenemos una colección.
Here in the planetarium library we have a very nice collection called spoiled books, spoiled because we love them very much, but because they have additional senses and they are books with these reliefs, with these textures, so that the visually impaired can also do this exercise of observation of the constellations.
Hacer este ejercicio de observación de las constelaciones.
We have our projector set up, so with tape in a quick way, and we can do the exercise with our flashlights.
Luces entonces, para que podamos ver.
We are going to pay for the lights, so we can see. Look how that W is growing, or that M, which represents our constellation Cassiopeia, and this is our constellation projector exercise.
Quedó bien chévere, bien interesante. Bueno, vamos a prender nuevamente las luces.
It was very cool, very interesting. Well, let's learn the lights again, so we can say goodbye, Johan. We are definitely out of time. We have many, many, many more stories pending, but thank you for bringing us a little closer to all that the firmament and the universe have to offer us, and to leave us with the desire to continue investigating, to continue searching, to continue reading. So thank you very much for joining us. Also invited to a next opportunity. Thank you very much, Sarah. Enjoy the firmament, and if you can get close to a planetarium, also enjoy the planetariums, the world of astronomy, which is a magical world, full of stories, mysterious, and that in certain moments of humanity becomes a trend, as at this moment with the James Webb and those images that are showing us those nebulae, constellations so cool, all that is a very amazing world, shocking, that we can easily get close to. Of course, Johan, remember to follow us on our social networks and subscribe to the YouTube channel, so that you are always aware of all our content, because TB Agro brings you closer to the field. See you in a future program.